Sir, you said during the campaign you had concepts of a plan. Do you have an actual plan at this point for health care?
Yes, we have concepts of a plan that would be better.
Ana Kasparian and Cenk Uygur of the Young Turks talk about Trump's concepts of a health care plan and why, as is obvious, that's insufficient, but also how they think this is going to unfold. So let's take a listen to this. I'm going to have some thoughts of my own to chime in, and then I want to know what you think in the comments.
Oh my God. All right. Well, 3 months after getting pretty brutally mocked for that very line during the presidential debate with Kamala Harris, Donald Trump decided to repeat it again. He has concepts of a plan. Now, look, we're talking about a guy who in his first term tried to repeal the Affordable Care Act, Obamacare, and he claimed that he had a replacement for it. So shouldn't you have a replacement already top of mind to answer that question? So look, back in September when ABC moderator Lindsay Davis asked Trump if he had a plan to replace the ACA, he said, I have concepts of a plan. I'm not president right now. Now, he won the election, so hopefully he has more than just a concept of a plan.
He doesn't. Of course, he doesn't.
What would he do to fix our broken healthcare system, especially right now at a time when everyone's talking about our broken healthcare system following the assassination of the United Healthcare CEO? Well, let's hear what he had to say with more context and then we'll discuss.
We have concepts of a plan that would be better.
Still just concepts? Do you have a fully developed plan?
Let me explain. We have the biggest healthcare companies looking at it. We have doctors. We're always looking because Obamacare stinks. It's lousy. There are better answers. If we come up with a better answer, I would present that answer to Democrats and to everybody else, and I do something about it. But until we have that, or until they can approve it, but we're not going to go through the big deal.
So look, you all should watch the entirety of this conversation, especially the part about healthcare, because to me, it was clear that he has no intention of attempting to repeal the Affordable Care Act in his second term. And that's good news, even though I actually do agree there are some major flaws in the Affordable Care Act, which is why everyone is pretty upset with our healthcare system. The Affordable Care Act did improve in some areas, including preventing health insurance companies from denying you coverage if you have pre-existing conditions, allowing children or people to remain on their parents' health insurance until the age of 26. You know, there are some caps on costs out of pocket. So there were definitely some improvements, which is why polling does show that the Affordable Care Act, generally speaking, is starting to poll a lot better.
You know, the original version of the ACA was less hobbled than it ultimately became when it was passed. The Republicans, cut pretty serious chunks out of it in order to let it get through at all. It's a sort of a major accomplishment that it got through at all. And it does do things. It gave people some coverage that weren't able to have coverage and prevented the pre-existing condition thing is a very important factor of it. Fundamentally, the issue with our healthcare, to me, is the private insurance industry, right? The fact that everything, if you have to have health insurance, it's a private profit-driven company, such as United Healthcare, that is providing that insurance, and that's a profit motive, right? So they are incentivized as a corporation to maximize profits, and that means minimizing care, basically. That doesn't change under the ACA. The ACA is trying to make sure everybody has insurance, but if insurance itself is the problem, it doesn't fix it. Now, none of that has anything to do with the fact that Trump is the guy to come in here and fix this. It's a horrible, money-soaked, tangled web of bureaucracy and graft and corruption and lobbying and all of that that's keeping things in place, to the point where, somebody took matters into his own hands and shot the CEO of one of these companies to sort of make a point. Well, let's listen to more of what she has to say.
And Republicans stopped calling it Obamacare as a result of that, which is fascinating. But I do agree that there are major flaws, right? The premiums are still too high. Insurance claims get denied all the time. So what are your thoughts, Cenk?
Yeah, so Trump is so frustrating because he never does any homework. Like if I got caught in a debate saying something ridiculous like, oh, I have concepts of a plan. You know what I do right after the debate, especially if you're running for president, I'd put 2 people, 10 people, 20 people on get me a goddamn healthcare plan immediately, right? But I would have done that 10 years ago because I would have cared while I was running for president the first time of having my own healthcare plan.
But Cenk, that's what you would have done, right? That's what a typical person would have done, right? Donald Trump is not a typical person. I don't understand how in 2024, after everything that's happened, after this election, we're talking about him as though he's your typical person, right? He doesn't know. He doesn't care. He doesn't read. They give him briefings. He doesn't read them. He watches TV. He's swayed by the last person in the room. He's operating from the hip, and he's very good in a media environment like this at controlling the story and creating chaos, and that's about it. Why are we still, well, if I was the president, I don't understand why he doesn't do his homework or bone up on, what are you talking about? This guy was already the president for 4 years. You don't understand who we're dealing with here? Cenk Uygur would be a better president than Donald Trump. I would be a better president than Donald Trump. Any one of you listening would be a better president than Donald Trump because any one of us would understand that in that position, you have to care about the good of the country. Even if you're completely incompetent, you have to care more about doing a good job for the country than you do about your own interests. And Donald Trump doesn't meet that criteria.
Especially as he was trying to kill Obamacare. He never had a plan to replace it. So Obamacare is like super weak sauce, in my opinion. It was written by the Heritage Foundation, the same organization that wrote Project 2025. So if you don't know that, and you're a Democrat and you watch mainstream media, you could look it up and you'll be shocked to find out. The first politician who did it was Mitt Romney. He passed it in Massachusetts when he was the governor there. So it used to be called Romneycare. Now it's called Obamacare, and it is built to be a super weak fix and maintain the system mainly as it is, but release valve. Oh, we got problems with pre-existing conditions, get rid of the pre-existing condition thing, and then the indentured servants will go back to the assembly line and keep working for us because they're now rebelling over the pre-existing conditions thing. By the way, put in a mandate so they must purchase insurance from the private health insurance companies that basically kind of wrote this plan, right? So it was, yes, it made it better than the draconian system we lived under before. And yes, if you're going to kill it, you should have a replacement, right? So I'm super curious in the long run, Anna, because so back in the day when we were having those debates, the Republicans, not Trump, but the Republicans said, oh, we have a replacement. Sure we do. What we're going to do is we're going to allow the different states to have their own healthcare systems, and then you could opt into any state you like. And that's called #freedom. And in the beginning, it sounds alluring. Maybe I could take maybe I'll take a red state one or a blue state one.
I don't think it sounds alluring. It sounds like a complete shit show to me.
I have all these 50 options. No, it's a race to the bottom. It allowed people to avoid the entire system. It's a complicated thing, which I explained many times back then, would actually make the healthcare system way worse, and much to the advantage of the healthcare insurance companies that were pushing for it, lobbying for it, giving campaign contributions for it, and the drug companies that were also doing the same thing. So the Republican politicians have been crooks my whole life. So now we've got a new base for Trump that hates Mitch McConnell and those old school Republican politicians.
Yeah.
But are they gonna wisen up to the fact that corporate donors are still in charge?
We also have another problem though, Cenk, because look, I prefer a single payer healthcare system. I think that is the best possible option. Looking at other models across the globe, that's the system that appeals to me the most. So I want to be clear about that. But the countries in which a single payer healthcare system tend to work best are countries in which the public, generally speaking, has high trust toward their government. And in America, we don't have that for good reason, because we have corporate, corrupt politicians. And so look, you often talk about getting money out of politics and all of that. I really do think that that's the heart of every issue that we have in this country, because look at what's happened in California, for instance.
I couldn't agree with her more here.
Not on the healthcare end, but on the dealing with housing and the homelessness crisis here, right? It's not that taxpayers in California have been unwilling to spend a significant amount of money to help people who are homeless and get them into housing. We've spent a lot of money, and a recent audit found that the state squandered $24 billion, and it did not improve the homeless problem at all, okay? And it's because that money got funneled into various nonprofits that have relationships with our local politicians, with our state politicians.
And real estate donors.
And real estate donors. That is corruption. That is all of these little entities getting rewarded after, engaging in their own bribery schemes, legal bribery schemes during the electoral process. We got to get rid of that corruption.
The question is how? How do we get the money back out of our politics now that it's in, right? Citizen United, we got a Supreme Court. At this point, it feels like it's just all of its wormwood. And even though we can get to the solution, which is we have to get money back out of our politics, how do we do that when our politics, our politicians are already a part of it, right? That would require those people, we either vote them out, right? And there's plenty of money lined up against us to spin and do what, look at this last election, right? I think it sort of proves that elections are kind of up for sale. I know that the commentary people have been saying is true, that the needle has shifted to the right and but media is a huge part of it, and the money spent on the media does have an effect, and all of the lobbying. It's like, I don't know how we get from where we are back to a quote unquote more pure state where our politicians aren't basically corporate employees. And we don't want to have a revolution if we can avoid it, because that is terrible, right? The idea of burning everything down in order to build it back up means that you have to go through that phase of burning everything down. But trust me, that's not going to be pleasant. But I just don't see another way to go about doing it. I mean, what am I missing here? Tell me in the comments.